Evening everyone, or should I say good morning, or whichever way around. Wait, this will be evening because it's around there. Anyway, I'm in Dudley and it's quite nice, the weather's lovely. There's a castle I just saw on the horizon, and everything's closed because it's 8 AM. The question is, why am I here? And in order to answer that, I have to go to the Patreon people who've been asking for a long time. In fact, not just the Patreon people, everyone has been asking for a long time for me to answer a very specific question. And hopefully in tonight's episode, that's precisely what I'm going to do. Well, look, it's a football player. Don't know anything about football. I literally have no idea. I have a footballer's name in my head that is called someone called Dudley, but I presume that's not who that is. It's actually a person called Duncan Edwards. Don't know. Anyway, I'm going to leave the people of Dudley in peace and quiet, and then I'll join you. I'll join you the other side of the intro. Everyone, welcome to tonight's Rail Natter. And as the Intercity 225 fades away, look, there's some stuff behind me. I'll tell you what all that stuff is very soon, but I will let you know, for this next 10 seconds where you're not going to know because I'm going to tell you in 10 seconds. This is Engineer's Line reference OW, which is pretty funny. And you can see there's some facilities. What could they be doing at these facilities, and why am I in Dudley? Anyway, yeah, the plan is I'm going to speak to lots of people in this place because it's kind of an open day or a launch day. Oh no, it's a conference. Oh yeah, it's a conference. Well, hopefully within this conference we'll speak to some people and we'll find out some things about the thing which I haven't told you about yet. So, what is VLR? VLR is very light rail. Why have I put asterisks there? Well, because very is meaningless. Although they're aiming for 1 ton, around 1 ton a metre of train length, which is, that's a sensible thing to set as a target. It's about half as light as other trains generally on the market, so it's quite a substantial reduction in mass of vehicle. So that's exciting. Light, well, same thing. And rail, well, it's the important thing about this is it is steel on steel, so that means that immediately it's not a gadget ban, which is at least positive. But what does it actually look like at the moment in terms of the vehicles? Where have they got to in terms of development? Well, there are two types. So there's urban VLR and there's rural VLR. The urban VLR is the one that's currently being developed as a mass transit system in Coventry. More on that later. Rural VLR is more about the specifics of the vehicle. So urban VLR is a bit of a system. It includes a new track form, or rather a developed form of light slab track. Rural VLR is much more just about the vehicle. It's a more conventional rail vehicle. Well, the all important thing to do is, we need to classify these. What on earth are they? Well, okay, so first of all, let's start with the urban VLR. So, I'll get my pencil, get my pen. There we go. Oh, so what is it? What is it going to be? Well, we start here, and we're going to go, well, it doesn't carry more than 10,000 passengers per hour, but it is steel on steel, good. It does have on-street running, which means it's a tram. There, easy. I think later on in the episode I actually kind of do this mentally in my head, and I do indeed come up with tram. What about the other one though? What about the other vehicle? Well, so the rural VLR, the Revolution VLR as it's kind of being branded. Well, start here. It definitely won't carry more than 10,000 passengers per hour. It is steel on steel. There's no on-street running, and it doesn't have dedicated tracks, so it's light suburban rail. So it's just basically a light suburban option. But actually the point of this is not so much that it's for urban transit. This is actually designed very specifically for rural railway lines. Kind of like the Pacer originally was, but ended up being for suburban trains. So I hope this ends up on rural lines and doesn't end up just replacing Pacers on suburban lines. But anyway, so that's what it is. So we've got what was that? So we've got the tram. The urban VLR is tram, and the rural VLR is sort of the not a metro thing doesn't really apply for this one. It's just a train, and we'll get to that. We'll talk specifically about both these vehicles a bit more shortly. But until then, let me continue on my strange Dudley adventures. Well, I'm in the building. Hello. Here we are. Look, everyone's congregating. This is a conference, and so I'm not entirely sure how I'm going to stitch it together. I'll try and film bits. I'll listen in, and I'll maybe repeat back to you the things that are said in the conference as everyone's gathering. No idea how it's all going to stitch together, but hopefully by the end of this, we'll have answered what on earth is very light rail. Answer that question, and whether it's any use. I think it will be. Well, my microphone's packed in already because it's so hot and everything's just melting, but hopefully you can hear this not too bad with the echo. So we just had the first half. I think I've just summarised some of the useful tidbits here and there from the various speakers. Some interesting stuff, some commonly repeated sort of buzzwords that annoy me, like autonomous. What's the point? It doesn't solve anything. Don't get me wrong. This is where you're going to trialing on this sort of system is the right thing to do, but it's just a pointless extra thing to add in for extra complexity. Anyway, whatever. Running it in mixed traffic is interesting. So fundamentally, when I do a roundup chat, I think I'll summarise this because I'm going to sit and just kind of summarise everything that I can think of that came up in the conference. But it's two systems. We've got the urban system, that kind of like it's really a people mover. It's sort of I don't really know how to classify it. I think it would come out as I'm not quite sure how it would come out on. In fact, I shall do a thing where I trace down on the Not a Metro categorizer right now. And then there's the other system, which is in old parlance will be light rail. It's like a bubble car really, but lighter. It's about half the weight of a class 121, for example. It does about the same thing. So it's interesting to compare these two. Hopefully in the next half now, we're going to do a bit of a tour, explore the facilities they have here, which is exciting because research and development with steel on steel is good. It's positive. Generally a positive feeling about this stuff that we're seeing. I'm worried about the idea that it's going to solve what is essentially a political deadlock on the fact that this government and Treasury fundamentally just doesn't want to invest in public transport at all. Fixed infrastructure of any kind is an anathema to it. So I don't think that problem's going to be solved. Anyway, I'm going to finish this cup of tea. I've got my badge on to make sure people know exactly where I stand, given the RMT have already had a dubious mention by one of the speakers, boo. Also autonomy. So I've got my badge, my TSSA badge on to assert that particular point. Anyway, we'll have an explore. I'm not allowed to film one of the vehicles, but I'm going to film everything else and then blur out that vehicle if I find out that it's one that I didn't realise it was. Let's do that. So we're now walking up to from the conference centre, or well, it's not really a conference centre, is it? It's the institute. Walking around to the test track. So we've had some nice chats. Asked a question there about autonomy, just being mean. Actually, I will talk to Graham again. Hopefully, he's in this group. I think about that. So it's interesting to see all this stuff, and I think what I'll do is we'll make this a bit of a hybrid one, and I'll do a live Q&A at the end of this episode, and because I've got lots of stuff in my brain that I've not necessarily filmed or captured. Had a very interesting chat with Tim from Eversholt about the Revolution VLR. Basically, I'm going to stop calling it that. There's the urban one and the rural one. So there's the urban VLR, which at some point we'll get the categorization up. But I think the urban VLR is a tram. It's just a tram, which is fine. The rural VLR is light suburban. It's just a rail vehicle, which is fine. It's good. It's a rail vehicle. It doesn't need to be called anything snazzy. It's a lighter, better, more efficient rural rail vehicle. So we'll see how that works out. Anyway, we're going to go up, have a look at the test track. I'll film some stuff, poke some things. Let's see what we can find.
There will be an encapsulation because you always have to, of course, separate your rail, which is moving vertically, and your pavement, which doesn't like movement. So, and you also need them joined. You need them sealed because you don't want water going in.
So you talked about the fact that the most egregious load on this is actually not the trains, it's the HGVs going over it. But what axle loads of trains could this potentially carry?
It has all been based based on the current vehicle, which is 5-ton dynamic axle load. But it can very easily be adapted to light rail vehicles. We'll need to rerun the models and see if we need to increase the slab thickness.
Okay, but it's very much optimized for that 5-ton axle load,
No, it's
essentially.
optimized for the road-going vehicle. That's by far the
Okay,
load case. That's why I say we just need to rerun the load cases on normal light rail. It might be the case that it's good enough as it is already, or just put an extra centimeter on the slabs and then it will be fine.
So behind me here is, you can see this is the new track form. I'm going to walk this way because we're about to go around what is supposedly the tightest operational curve now in the UK for railways. Yeah, that's fantastic. I've prodded it, done a bit of filming. I'll hopefully explain more of that. But that's one of the more exciting things that's coming out of this project. Actually, is this new approach to tram tracks. So, yeah, fingers crossed that actually goes somewhere. So I'm going to walk this way, and behind me now is I walk this way. You can see a very tight curve. There it is, a very tight curve. Just laid in. Actually, it's a bespoke. That's a bespoke base plate. In order to facilitate the flat. So we've got that test track behind me that I was told off for filming on, and we've got the test track running here, and we've got the building next to us, which is quite exciting. See the scale of it there. We're going to go and speak to Noel, hopefully, from Fear and Frey, to talk about the charging system. So that should be interesting. There we go. Test track. This is just a conventional test track. It's not that exciting.
So the vehicle comes in, it goes to a terminus at the hospital, it has a few minutes to turn around, that's when this charges. So a vehicle just pulls up and communicates with the charger. The charger will then lower the pantograph in about 7 seconds onto the vehicle and then fully charges the vehicle in just over 3 minutes. So this is just under a half a megawatt charger, so it is a big powerful charger. If you compare this to rail electrification, a train has a pantograph, so an arm on top that reaches up and touches the overhead wires, the overhead line above the track. Well, this is kind of inversing that. So the pantograph is on the infrastructure, and one of those reasons is a pantograph can weigh 150, 200 kilos, and again, that's not conducive to a very light rail vehicle. So instead, the pantograph is mounted on the infrastructure, and that then reaches down and charges onto the train. The charger's got 4 contacts on that pantograph, so a positive, a negative, an earth and a pilot. Hopefully I remembered those correctly. And they reach down to 4 contact strips on the roof of the train, and the strips on the roof are quite long, so there's quite a large stopping distance of whether the vehicle stops here or there. This allows for that. So yeah, the idea is completely autonomous. When the vehicle wants to move off, it communicates with the charger, the pantograph retracts, and the charger retracts, and then the vehicle just moves on. So it's about having really short headways, frequent vehicles charged autonomously and quickly, and yeah, so it's now in operation here. It's already been in operation on buses for several years, and the real goal for us to reduce infrastructure costs is charging very light rail vehicles and buses at the same time. So if you picture a bus turning up on the street in Coventry at the hospital, where the very light rail vehicle also pulls up, those 2 vehicles can both charge at the exact same charger. Not here where there's a track, but when that track's embedded in the road. And we've already done compliance testing with about half a dozen bus companies, and hopefully by the end of the year we would have done compliance testing with almost every UK bus manufacturer as well. So yeah, certainly for when this is deployed into Coventry, we really want to see multimodal charging on a single charger.
There's many things we can't take a photo of. Weirdest place we've ever been on.
To allow engineers to get underneath it if necessary.
Who are the initial tenants in the building? So have you got anyone confirmed? Are WMG going to have a presence here, for example?
About WMG, we are talking to them, but I wouldn't say that they are looking to be a tenant. We have, you can't report this, but
Part of the Coventry project, so that when they put the track in, they didn't have to knock buildings down. Really, as simple as that, so you can follow the road rather than having to move any infrastructure. So that's why it's 15 metres. That's why the vehicle was designed with the bogie, specialist bogie, to be able to go around this 15 metre curve.
So let's talk about the urban VLR system. This is, well, you can see it's a fairly shiny thing. It's kind of people movery dimension. It's got a driving position at each end here. Actually, you know what? It's probably easier to do this in a schematic form. It's actually got two kind of bogey systems to allow it to traverse that really tight 50-meter radius curve, which is, pretty impressive. That's very, very tight. Kind of more standard tram, kind of modern tram train, tram vehicles traverse curves not much tighter than 28 meters. So 50 meters is really, really tight. This thing has, it's capable of going up to like 40 miles an hour. It's been designed as part of a system, though. It's also been designed alongside the track form. So I'm not going to talk a huge amount about the track form because I think it merits its own episode because it's really interesting. But I'll allude to it later in the episode. I think I stand next to it and prod it and speak to the kind of one of the lead engineers who kind of led on the development of it. It's quite interesting. But you can see how much space is wasted, though, by having a driver's seat on both sides, which is why we've moved away from. This is basically a glorified streetcar. It's like trams used to be. So it's not a huge amount, but it still has capacity for about 50. It says 56 people. That's going to be a hell of a tight squeeze. It's more like 40 in there with 20 seats. So it's got some capacity. What was that? There's about 40 passengers, let's say, and 20 seats. There we are in here. Lovely. And yeah, so it doesn't rely on overheads, so it's a battery thing, which adds a bit of extra weight, and again removes more passenger space. Fine. It's got a 20-kilometer battery range, which isn't too bad, and that kind of works for this. So it is designed to be lightweight. So it's 11 meters long. It's not quite a pod, but fine. I think here's a nice image of it blown into bits, so you can sort of see that I don't really know what this tells us other than there it is. It looks, that's it. You can see the driving positions at each end, which is they're hoping to get rid of that with autonomy, but basically the prototypes and probably the squadron fleet, let's face it, are all going to be they're going to have driving positions, that's a lot of extra expense and kit. So, maybe this is the chance for it to. But the thing is, this is supposed to be running. This isn't going to be entirely on dedicated corridors. It's going to have mixed traffic running. So it'll be kind of in amongst cars and stuff. And if that's the case, then autonomy basically won't work. It won't work very well. It won't be reliable. So it's likely to always have driving positions. So that is quite a lot of, if you think this is about the size of a small bus, imagine having two driving positions. There's a reason why the trams generally get longer. But anyway, okay, fine. It is what it is. We'll this element of it, the urban VLR, I'm more skeptical of. I'm not totally hating on it, but there are reasons things are the way they are. There are reasons why modern trams have developed the way they have. But anyway, so that's that. Lovely. Oh, and here's some very pleased men and a woman there. In fact, I think she might be the project manager actually for Coventry. I think she spoke at the conference. Anyway, some very pleased people standing around there, half built. It's not the mock-up. This is actually the real vehicle, but it's there, half built and looking snazzy. Cool, fine. It looks a bit 2000s. I have to be honest. Sorry to the designers and the stylers of it. It looks a bit dated, but whatevs. It's just my own personal preference. And there are some things that I'm a little bit in terms of the way that the design of the front. If I go back to the picture at the front, I can just see. Yeah, you can't really see it from this picture, but when I saw the real thing at the event, which we weirdly weren't allowed to video, it does look a little bit like people are going to get dragged underneath there, if because of the weird kind of the curve shape, whereas there's more of an aggressive shape that's more of a scoop for people. If on more modern trams, anyway, fine. I'm sure they have thought about that stuff. Fine, and this will be for Coventry. The point of this is it'll be roll out in Coventry. They'll be looking to roll it out sort of. I think they're aiming. What was the date? They were looking at trying to get this working in like late 2025 for the first route being built or not even finished. Maybe sort of construction beginning on it. So this is still a way off. But they're aiming to start kind of. It's going to have like, what was that? 1, 2, 3, 4 routes. And, you know, I think it's an interesting idea. I think it's an interesting idea, and if they can get it to work, great. But it's slower than you'd hope. You know, I'd love them to just get this thing kicked off, but a lot of it's about the consenting and planning, and everything's very slow on that front. Anyway, let us. The thing I was going to say was, I think basically this thing is essentially just a reinvention, and fine, you know, that's absolutely fine. But it's a bit of a reinvention of what streetcars used to look like, you know, single story trams before we started making them longer. So I feel like it's almost like a backward step, but with there's a bit of a purpose behind it. As you can see, I'm a little bit two minds about this. We could prod me on the Q&A that we'll have next week. You can prod me about it. Anyway, on with the next bit. So, like the rural VLR, let's have a look at this one. This is one that I think, okay, they're trying to make it snazzy and refer to it in lots of snazzy ways, but actually for me, this is the clever things about this are the way it's used standards to minimize its weight, minimize the mass of the vehicle by making some assumptions about safety that I don't think are unreasonable, you know, about the sorts of vehicles it might interact with. You know, this is not expected to be running frequently in amongst heavy, other heavy design rolling stock. So there are things, you know, so they've toyed with the crashworthiness in a way. You know, I don't think a HST crashworthiness, you know what I think about that. That's a mainline train that runs at high speeds in amongst heavy stock. This is not that. This is not going to be running in amongst lots of heavy stock. It's also nice and light and can stop quickly, and all these. There are lots of factors that mean that this is it makes sense to be a bit cute with the way that we apply certain standards and manage the risk in a slightly different way. Here is, I think it looks quite smart. I'll tell you what it does make me think of, though. That is the Class 121. This is episode 121 of Rail Natter, the 122nd episode of Rail Natter, and so it's fun that we're getting to do one about this class. I really did miss the opportunity with episode 91, didn't I? Anyway, it's just a bubble car. And I keep saying this through the episode, actually. I keep referring to it as a bubble car, but it is a bubble car. It's a one-car train. A little bit less gubbins underneath, but not that much. All this gubbins here. Gubbins. Here it's 1-to-1. And why do I say that? Well, let's just have a nice zoomed-out look at this very vibesy photograph. Lovely image. Anyway, I'm back at Rail Live, and I don't know when this is going to be going out. But I decided to cut it out of the Rail Live episode because, frankly, it fits better with the VLR episode. So, a brief segment of actually getting onto the Revolution VLR. There it is. Look. Now, there are a few critical things to talk about on this vehicle. That's all right. You come. A few key things I want to talk about that are exciting about this. Firstly, that it's kind of really and they hate me calling it this. It's kind of the on you come, no worries. The bubble car, the modern era. Right, the first thing I'm going to talk about is while I step onto the train, because floor height is 950 millimeters. Look, there it is. In fact, I'm going to get on. The platform's actually a bit low, which is why it looks the way it does. It's a busy train. Here's Mr. Bigland, and indeed a whole full train, all 56 seats that appear to be taken. There's Paul here. It's Paul Bigland. So this is the Revolution VLR, and I get on, and immediately the feeling is. Build quality looks pretty good. All the finish looks very good. The seats look pretty good. The general feeling in here is that this is a modern, light, it's quite airy feeling actually. That 200mm floor height feels like it wins you quite a bit of extra height. Hi Tim. Quite a lot of extra space. I'm going to stand in a vestibule while we pull out. This Paul sort of organising a different Paul. Oh, this all looks quite. So it looks quite smart. This is a smart looking train, given that this is a prototype. The thing is, the team pulling it together know that it needs to look the part. It can't look shoddy. When you're trialling a thing like this, it has to look absolutely spot on, because any little grumbly, unhappy people are going to be very upset if the train feels anything less than top quality. So I'm going to stand hold on to make sure I don't fall over with the train behind. It's just a regular single car train. It's funny that we earlier for me, not earlier for you, got a lot earlier for you because it's the Rail Line episode. I was on the 153, and it's funny to be inside this, which is doing the same job, quite a lot less axle load. Not quite as much less than they'd like. It's not quite down to the ton a metre, but it's not far off. I think it's about it's like 1.6 or something. It's not quite as low as they want it to be, but part of that is because they went for conventional bogies. I've done a bit of a breakdown of single kind of one-car trains over the years, just to do a bit of an interesting comparison, because I think it's quite interesting to sort of look at these four and sort of make some comparisons. So the first of these it's a GWR railcar. There are a few variations. I've kind of picked a bit of a middle ground one, but 70 seats, 260 horsepower, which gave it about 6.5 kilowatts per ton, which is fine. It was 18.4 meters long, weighed 30 tons, which gave it a mass per meter of 1.63 tons per meter. Okay, so bear that number in mind. We haven't got anything to compare it with yet. Let's jump to the 121, the BR Class 121. Only had 65 seats. A bit more power, though, 300 horsepower, but it weighed a bit more, so it actually only has 5.8 kilowatts per ton. It's a bit longer, 19.7 meters. 38 tons, so 8 tons more than the GWR rail car, which means that it nearly weighs 2 tons per meter, so that's quite substantial. So this is double what the VLR team are aiming for, to be able to call their thing VLR. So the next one is, I just realised I'm not in the corner, up in the corner. Well, you can see me briefly in here if I'm here. Hello. I'm going to get rid of my face again because you don't need to see me. Bye again. Next one is it's Class 153, and the 153 has 75 seats in its kind of optimized configuration, only 285 horsepower, which means it's reducing its power again down to 5.2 kilowatts per ton. So it's we're reducing power because these things get heavier, because this one weighs 41.2 tons. It's a longer vehicle as well. It's 23.2 meters, and this means that it's a bit lighter than the 121 actually. So it's 1.78 tons per meter. So that's not so bad compared to the 1.93 of the 121. Now let's jump to the Revolution VLR. So this only has 56 seats, so it's got fewer seats. It's got a smaller engine set. So it's got a gen set of 160 horsepower, 4.8 kilowatts per ton. So it's less power than any of the other vehicles here. It's the least gutsy in terms of power to weight ratio. It's about the same length as the GWR railcar, 18.5 meters, 18.5 exactly. But it's quite a bit lighter. So it's only 24.8 tons. So I think that's about the same as the lightest of the GWR railcars, but that was when they only had half an engine in them, or rather one engine rather than two. So that's quite substantially lighter, 24.8 tons, and that reduces its tons per meter down to 1.34. So it's by far the lightest per meter of these vehicles, and it's the lightest outright of these vehicles. But it is the reason I put this up is because for me it's like we are basically pulling back to. We're using new technologies to deal with the fact that trains are heavier, they carry lots more kit, they do lots more things than original trains did. But we've now used some clever materials to basically pull the weight of the vehicle back to where we were at the start of the 1900s. So I don't want us to get too excitable about this being radical technology. We're just applying new materials to pull new manufacturing techniques and construction techniques to pull ourselves back to the days where we had a timber vehicle. Which is fine. That's a good thing. That's something to be, pleased about. But also, I think it's worth putting it into historical context, frankly. So anyway, I think it's a useful way to look at the rural train. And the point is that this is a unit that I think could see quite wide application on rural rail lines to increase frequencies. So if rather than having a sprint. I think I say this in the section that we're about to go into, because I'm about to hop on the train and do a bit of exploration. So let's have a look. What can we see? So it's got a kind of reasonably wide door there. It's PRM width, PRM compliant door. The floor height is level. It's level. It's a conventional step, but it actually has a footstep. Unlike the 777, which goes for the gap filler, this just has a conventional footstep. So not quite as good for curved platforms, compatibility on that front, but still it helps a lot that you have a level floor. You can see the actual spin round and point down here. You can sort of see the smooth, the kind of the flat finish. This is a flat floor here. I can stick my head in here if you're curious as to what the actual driving position looks like. Very nice. So that. Can I sit in the driver's cab? And the answer is yes, and I'm going to do it right now. I'm going to not touch a single ruddy thing, which is always my paranoia whenever I sit in this. We're moving though. We're off. Look, I'm going to sit here and have a look at the view at the back. We're off ski. It's a very smooth ride, worth noting. We are going at well, there are two factors of that. We're going slow, but also this track is absolute crap, so they kind of balance each other out. It feels like a modern train, which is what we want. There's Dave Frankel out the window. There he is. There's David. Yeah. How do people feel about this? Well, everyone's sort of sat quietly enjoying a train journey and a bit of aircon. Yeah, look, this has got capacity for 56 seats in this layout. I think it goes up to like another 70. It does go up to 75 with standing as well, something around that. 80. I'm having Paul's head of design. Paul is whispering things at me. Paul here from TDI. Yeah, so. It's moving. This is a thing. It's here. No longer is it on the drawing board. It's not a model in a glass box.
Yep.
This is a physical thing, actually working,
We've gone
running
from packet sketch to something
to something that is functioning. And I tell you what, the thing that strikes me, and I'm sure lots of people have said this to you, is I've just got onto a modern regular train. There's nothing, and what you want, what I guess is, as for me when I'm designing track alignments, is I want no one to notice that there's anything special or different about this.
Exactly.
It's just a regular train. That's what passengers should be thinking. Operators.
Some nice features within it.
Yep.
Obviously we've got PRM compliance as well in wheelchair spaces.
Yep.
But it's essentially, it's built for the markets it's intended to.
Yeah.
It's not kind of the 6-car sets. It's for urban railways.
But interesting, what I quite like about the future-proof, lots of people talk about virtual coupling and all this stuff, but real coupling, this has a coupler. You can couple two together. So in a situation where you have, let's hypothetically say you ended up with a railway that runs up to Ellen and splits and goes to one way to Peterhead and the other way to Fraserburgh. I'm making that example up. But say you do, two cars meet in Ellen and run as a single comparator to get through the limited number of paths into Aberdeen. That's an opportunity that you do have.
Yeah, no problem at all. We've got facility for putting the couplers onto it. It's a hinge type coupler. It's an oleo unit that we've looked at putting into the thing. Yeah. I mean, here we are. You should be very proud. It's a smart looking unit. Indeed.
Build quality looks really good, which is important on a prototype because everyone gets unhappy when they're unsure. Even if it is a prototype, it has to be the best build quality of any unit you put out.
Yeah. It's always been a good focus from TDI. We always want to make sure that something that you build and you engineer is done nicely. Yeah,
absolutely. No, it's cracking. The aircon is working overtime, and we're all very glad of it here. So yeah, here it is. Look at it. It's a train, and it looks for people sitting on it. It's like, well, it's a nice, clean, new train.
Well, it's 5 miles an hour today.
Yeah, I know. We're not pushing it through its paces. It can get up to 65 miles an hour off the top of my. I think that's right off the top of my head. Yeah. It's this thing can do pretty much everything that 153 that I was referring to earlier can do. Okay, a little bit slower, but the reality is this thing probably accelerates quite a lot faster, so it probably makes up for that in terms of timetabling. It's very smart. I'm looking forward to seeing it appear. As the next thing is, where is this going to appear in operation? That's the open question. So now everyone's off that train, enjoyed our brief foray through. It's worth talking about the construction of this train because this is assembled. It's quite essentially the really unique thing about this vehicle is the way it's assembled. These identical panels. There's a panel here, panel on the other side as well. These are carbon fibre. They are bonded. You see this little sort of ceiling point here. They are bonded in to provide this monocoque structure. So this bonded in, they're kind of a much smaller number of rivets. It's kind of almost placement rather than structural. But then it's bonded together, so that creates this very light monocoque. Look, it's nice. The build quality is great. This is just a standard train table. There's USB charging points everywhere. There's someone's left something behind. We won't worry about that. There's all sorts of bits and pieces around. Actually, no, they're trying them. There's a different design of USB thing down there. Yeah, that's quite interesting. There's a little different. How I get down there? A little different design, whereas it's a more conventional one down this side. No, it's not. Oh yeah, on this side it's more conventional. It's a trial train, so they're trying different bits out. But it's just it's roomy. It feels quite roomy, which is quite nice. You think of a train like this, you might think of it as being a bit pokier. But yeah, that's the unique selling point really, is that structural element. And we'll have a look. I'm going to step out the train and thank you, sir. Step out the train and sort of show you how that looks from the outside. And you can hardly tell. It's got the sealant there. It's just these panels. They are the thing that that make it as light as it is, whilst giving it its torsional strength and all of its various kind of keeping the strength of the train up, whilst really bringing that weight down. There you go, and you can see the choice made about bogies was a sensible one to get this thing running quickly. But they have done a few things. So it's a freight bogie, but they've done a few things to kind of knock the weight down a little bit more. There we go. You can see there they've got the Lucchini sort of hollow kind of axles and a few bits and pieces like that. But it's a smart unit. You see, and again, the powertrain is you can see the racks down here. I'll put some B-roll in. You can see the racks of the prime mover, and then the battery rack as well that kind of just slide back and forth. It's a clever little train. I'm looking forward to seeing this one sort of providing a replacement for where you've got the kind of the right balance of. So for me, ideally, I like this for a reason that possibly Eversholt aren't necessarily foreseeing, which is because you can start running higher frequency services with a smaller train, which is operationally a bit of a pain in the backside, but it actually will bring more people onto the railway. Frequency is freedom. So if you previously had a 2-hourly service with one 2-car 156 or whatever, swapping that for a every 1 hour, maybe every half hour train with this, because of that the reduction in operational costs, the reduction in axle loads as well, you actually potentially reach the point where you have a better railway service. So for me, that is quite exciting about this train. So enough of me waffling. Back to whatever on earth bit of segment this is. I'm very hot in real life. Back to whatever segment of the video I'm going to go to next. So let's briefly round up, because I think mostly I'll do this chat in the Q&A next week. So yes, tune in for the Q&A next week, which will be live with me in it, because I wouldn't have had to do a pre-record because I'm not in the House of Lords at this very moment. So if I go big face, hello, it's me. I'm in big face. I'm very tired because it's past midnight. It's in fact 25 to 1 on Tuesday evening / Wednesday morning, because this week has been hectic. But how do I round up? Briefly, the Urban VLR, fine. It's a bit slow for my taste to get rolling, but it's happening. That's grand. I hope it's successful. It's a streetcar. It's just kind of pulling us back to streetcar, and there are elements of that I think are a bit wasteful. Not least the 2 cabs and the amount of battery in it. But if it does bring down the cost radically, they're suggesting they want to come down to 5 million a kilometre or 5 million a mile. I think they kept saying one or the other, but anyway, they want to make it reliably delivered at that cost. If they can succeed at that, terrific. That's good stuff. Rural VLR, it's just a new train. It doesn't need to be called a new type. It's not VLR. It's not a new type of thing. It's just pulling us back to kind of the mass that we had when we had timber framed rail cars. So that's great. Let's see where it applies. If it's used to increase frequencies, great. If it's just used if it's just used at the same frequencies that the current larger trains are, then that's reducing capacity. That's not good. So again, it comes down to political context. I don't think these are radical game changers. VLR is not a radical game changer. It's just particularly the rural VLR. It's just good. It's a good train, and I wish it every luck. And I hopefully it'll see some good rollout. But I don't think this is going to make any radical shifts or changes, frankly. But maybe there's a bit of collaboration there in terms of managing. The challenge is that to run a safe railway requires a minimum level of attendance to the infrastructure that you have to do with you have to do the same level of maintenance to the track with a Revolution VLR, with the rural VLR, as you do with a Sprinter or with regular freight. Like that, it doesn't actually make that much difference to the fixed costs at that point. So basically it's just a good new train. I don't think it's going to offer anything radical. Urban VLR maybe does offer something, a chance for smaller cities to get a hold of a fixed infrastructure system, and I'm all for trams, and if that does work, then I'll be very happy. I'm just sceptical as to whether it will, but I think I alluded to that already. Anyway, enough of my roundup. I'm going to go back to, which version of me am I going to go back to? I think I'm going to go back to me at Rail Live a couple of weeks ago, probably when I had COVID but didn't realise it. So enjoy that. So here I am. Look, I'm at Rail Live. Bit of a crossover. It's the Revolution VLR, or the bubble car for the modern era, as I keep calling it, much to the chagrin of everyone on the project. Hopefully that was useful. There's the conference bit and the Q&A bit. Hopefully between those two things, I've kind of explained or attempted to explain and answer the question: what is VLR and is it any good? yeah, as ever, the podcast is available on audio only. Thanks to everyone listening to it. Should be up to date by now, hopefully, depending on when this goes out. The usual plugs, Patreon. Thanks to everyone supporting me on Patreon, particularly on location stuff like this. It allows it to happen. Thank you to everyone who buys merch. The merch at Masket is still available. PayPal.me/Gareth Dennis for throwing abuse and pennies at me. And the Discord, the chat. Hello everyone in the chat. The chat continues on Discord. GarethDennis.co.uk/Discord. Next week's episode is something. Take it away, future Gareth. Thanks me from confused me. So if you haven't watched it already, you can go and watch the next episode of the Archipelago series, which is on Beswickelhausen's channel. And indeed, next week, the next episode, which will indeed be the Rise of the Rail Bus. So last time I was saying that it was the Rise of the Rail Bus, but actually it was a trams episode, talking of VLR, urban VLR. Now the next episode will have rail buses in it. So weirdly, there's your urban VLR and there's your rural VLR. Strangely, our Engineer Plays Archipelago series is kind of echoing this episode. In terms of rail matters, next week it's going to have the VLR Q&A, but also we're going to be talking about Shaps's terrible signalling video. Because it's funny and everything in it was wrong, and it's fun to talk about things that are wrong because maybe we'll learn something. So in a way, Shaps will have given us all something to think about. Interesting. So that should be good. I will see you all next week. Cheerio!